So, 10 of my favorite classic D&D modules. So where do I start? Where do I start? Like I said, start playing back in 84, 85. It was only natural to have a high school group. We played at lunch, and I loved it. I played, like I said, I played a lot of role-playing games. Dungeons and Dragons, Star Frontiers, Top Secret. I didn't play Gamma World. I wanted to. Star Trek, Doctor Who, you name it, I played it pretty much. But D&D was the granddaddy for me. Like I said, the red box basic set was just basically a couple classes: fighter, cleric, magic user, elf, dwarf, and simple monsters, and just go at it. I know Haunted Halls of must be on this list. Let me start. You might be disappointed, Duncan. Duncan's gonna call me out. But let me get into it here. I should tell you too. I still have some of my D&D stuff. I've got my player's manual, my dungeon master manual, my Unearthed Arcana manual. I've got a bit of the basic set, and I have one module. I have X1 in Search of the Unknown, or Isle of Dread. Pardon me, because it came with the Express set, which I also have. But big thing for me about Dungeons and Dragons is I used to go to a hobby store or a chain called Leisure World. Doesn't exist anymore in Canada. It's gone. And they have all sorts of like everything, models, paints, glues, everything in there, and also role-playing games. And a lot of Saturdays we would spend going in there, going to the RPG rack, picking up these modules, looking at the cover, and then looking at the back to see if the adventure was any good. That's all the indication we had that if it was going to be a good adventure or not, if we're going to buy it. I love that blind binding. Like, there's no spoilers on the internet. If you're lucky, a friend might have bought it already and played it, but odds are you're going in blind. And Duncan might be disappointed actually in this one. So, modules is what we call Dungeons and Dragons Adventures before 3rd edition. We just call them modules. It was just a naming term, basically. And there was a code system on all the modules. And there was basically letter, number. So everybody knew their favorite module by the letter, either A1, S3, B3. You name it, there was actual number to it. A numbering code to it. The UK had a very... I remember Uncle Gunny spoiling one of my modules. He sent me a telegraph that didn't stop. Here's what happens at the end. Stop. Oh, Duncan, you're killing me tonight. Yes, back then we didn't have telephones. We used to spin telegraphs each other. Kept them short too because it was like 5 cents a word. And that was a lot of money back then. I had to save it for my penny candy. But the UK also had had their own set of interests too, called UK1 and all that. Like I said, I was D&D, pre-AD&D. On AD&D first edition and second edition, that was my wheelhouse. That's what I played a lot. Damn, of course, worked with D&D, really the internet. But there's only like getting a module, cracking out that plastic, and getting a big whiff of that chemical smell. That chemical paper, basically. And that crisp stuff and all that. But anyways, let's get into it. And like I said, I'm going to ask you then what your favorites are. Duncan's already given me one, Haunted Halls of Evening Star. And I can't believe I'm disappointed one of my favorite guys already. But first off, an honorable mention. Gotta talk about the Dragonlance Chronicles. Came out in 84. Designed by two of the giants of fantasy, well, the fantasy genre. Tracy Hickman and Laura Hickman. It was literally basically a war between dragons. And the players are trapped on between both sides, basically. And this is crazy. So they came up with the idea, pitched 12 modules, a 12 module arc to TSR. And TSR goes, well, it sounds good, but you know what? We should do some novels along with this. Because people read the novels and want to play the adventure, right? No problem. And so they went all in. At first, it was kind of funny. The novels came roughly at the same time as the modules. The Hickmans didn't like that because they had to write the novels to fit the module. Kind of like, I don't know, Game of Thrones, the TV show. So they were allowed basically to speed along the novels and bring the modules afterwards to follow the novels. They went full franchise on this one. I mean, they went hard on Dragonlance. If you're around 84 to 87, It was Dragonlance everywhere. Did more haunted halls and DDO than the original module. That's good, because I must be like it was a good module. Dungeons Dragons Online. Play it if you haven't played it yet. Let me see what else I got for my notes here. The novels were not that well received. A lot of people were pooping on the novels, saying they were ripping bleeding chunks from Tolkien or being deadly predictable. That was the critics, though. The fans, we ate up. I remember trying to get the novels library for weeks before they came available because everybody's getting them out. But look at that. By 93, novels over 3 million copies. By 2008, that's 24 years later, there's 190 novels based on the Dragonlance franchise. Cover kind of looks like characters from the animated series. I guess animated series copy the cover. Well, I had Tiamat in the cartoon, Switz, but not a dungeon. But no, but yeah, I think the series borrowed from it. This was the granddaddy, the granddaddy of them all, basically. And I'll tell you what. When I played a few of the modules, I'll be brutally honest. They were okay. They didn't quite capture the epic, sweeping legacy of the novels and stuff like that. But it had dragons. What more did you want? Because usually dragons are rare encounters. And these modules, they were everywhere. And I'll tell you what. If you haven't read these novels, these are the first 3 novels, and you like Lord of the Rings, or you like a good dungeon crawl or an epic world, pick these novels up, check them out. They're not heavy reads, and they're somewhat enjoyable. I've read a few of the ones beyond this, but these are the core 3 that y'all have to read, basically. And you'll quickly have your own character, your own favorites. The Red Mage Raceland was always popular, sort of the anti-hero and all that. Duncan, do you know off the top of your head if Dungeons & Dragons Online copied, borrowed, or enhanced any other modules? I'm just kind of curious, that's all. Anyways, I will mention Dragonlance Chronicles. Check out those novels if you haven't, but I cannot stress the splash that made when those modules came out. It was everywhere. Everywhere and anywhere. Now, on to my favorite classic modules. Like I said, I hate to disappoint people, but here we go. B2, Keeping the Borderlands. This was the first module I dungeon mastered. Levels 1 to 3, written by the master himself, Gary Gygax. Arriving at a keep, players will use it as a base to explore the surrounding caves and a wilderness, basically. Did what they could with other modules, might be running into license problems. Good point, actually. Oh, PEM. I didn't actually count how many modules there are. I'd probably say there's probably at least 40 or 50 or better. And like I said, I'm only scratching the surface with 10 of them. Because we had basic modules. We had modules for their War Army expansion set. They had a couple of those. We had solo modules with the little red kind of like plastic you look and reveal stuff and all that. Keyword Lens is the other level 1 DDO. That's good to know. There's lots of PEM, and like trying to figure out what to play. So, like, the best part is you never ran out of things to play because you can make your own, but we often just bought these modules. This one got named the 7th best adventure of all time. There's Magazine 04. It replaced B1 a few box sets, which I did not know. Contained tips to the Dungeon Master. There's a keep. The keep in this is fully fleshed out, and what some of the guidance in this module is you can literally take this keep, lift it, and drop it in any other kind of universe world you create it. It was excellent. Now, the downside is there was a larger map that had areas on it that weren't fleshed out. It just said, Caves of the Unknown, we're here. There's a few mini encounters here and all that. So it was kind of funny. These early modules, Gygax try to encourage dungeon masters to. You're still kind of learning how to be a dungeon master. What's weird about this one is it says caves level 1 to 3, but the caves are kind of in a semicircle, and you can start in any cave you want it. The problem was some of these monsters up in certain caves would probably wipe out a third level party pretty quick. It was pretty hard. It can be pretty hard if you went to the wrong cave to start off with. What that actually says in the book is we recommend you bring 6 to 9 mercenaries to pad your party with, just so just so that you had backup, basically. There's no big baddie. It's just basically a cave of random monsters and groups together. It still holds true. Well, I know, right? I always bring mercenaries. Or that, mercenaries and henchmen, because they were disposable. I never played D&D. I've heard of it, obviously, but have no personal interaction with it. These modules come with models, or the models of figure paint figures are completely separate from these. Completely separate it. And that's an excellent point. Because if you watch a movie like E.T., where they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, or if you're watching Stranger Things, they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, they have these miniatures. And TSR was great at having this side kind of business to push other stuff, right? So they encourage you to build your own dungeon, get these miniatures and stuff like that. No, you don't need figures, actually. Actually, what you do need, though, is graph paper. Because as you explore, the DM will actually sketch the map. That's the most important thing you're going to need, actually. Now, having said that, Switz is a good point. Modern D&D got smart. Because people like Switz and me like small, shiny things. So modern D&D actually has a spin-off set called D&D Majors. You can buy and play on a map, basically. They have some excellent board games. Stuff like Ravenloft, Temple of Elemental Evil, that give you miniatures and a dungeon crawl based upon a module. So they knew what people like Switz are thinking, basically, is people want miniatures. That's good. And the things about those games, too, that they mentioned is you don't really need a DM. You can play and the game plays itself with, with your players and all that. But no, back then we'd have miniatures. All we had was our imaginations and, like I said, graph paper. Lots of graph paper. And as Duncan said, you're always bringing 6 or 9 mercenaries. We just call them A, B, C, or D because they were kind of disposable. Now, 5th edition is the latest version of Dragons. This converted quite well. And they took B1, B2 and put it actually into one book and made it for 5th edition. Updated quite well, actually. GBT is the new GM. Yeah, pretty much they're brass. Actually, it's not a bad idea. But like I said, I remember that one well, my first module. And like I said, you didn't play these all in one night. You usually play them over the course of weeks and sessions and all that. Now, the next one I like for a different kind of reason, though. Palace of Solar Princess. 81. Moldavi and Gene Wells, level 3. Long ago, Princess Argento ruled over a beautiful and peaceful land. Then one day, a warrior riding a white dragon appeared in the skies, and almost overnight, the tiny kingdom fell into ruin. Now only ruins and rumors remain, and what legends there are tell of a fabulous treasure. No problem, Pam. Kick back and lurk. All lurkers, sit back, relax, enjoy. I'm here to educate. This module you're seeing right here is the 2nd edition. The 1st edition, boring old guy. The 1st edition was an orange cover, designed solely by Gene Wells. Had many unique monsters and encounters, which was not the norm back in the day. It was usually when you got these modules, you didn't usually get a unique monster, maybe 1 or 2. The first one was full of it. During its production, some of the writing was not up to snuff, and there was an image of, let's say, bondage. Yes, an illustration of bondage, as well as monsters that mock TSR management. Rumor is that the editors went to Gary Gygax saying, you can't release this module. And Gene complained, and Gary says, ship it. So, on the eve of the publication, TSR Sheer Magic finally said, not a chance. This module can't go out. So, as the boxes are sitting on the loading dock, they're being seized. All the ones for the orange copy. The entire print run, about 5,000 to 10,000 modules, were allegedly destroyed. Copies that were sent out to the stores were recalled. The copies given to employees were even taken back. I don't know how many of these orange copies are left actually in the wild. I'd probably say maybe a handful if you see them. I looked on eBay, I couldn't find any, but now you know why they go for probably a princely sum. So imagine that 10,000 of these things were recalled and destroyed because we can't send that out. Tim rewrote the whole thing for the green version, and it got kind of basically a very watered down average adventure kind of thing. Gene still got credit for it though. But it's funny though, if you want to know more about this one, go on the Wizard of the Coast site. They have an article talking about the orange module, and you can download the PDF of it and read it in all of its glory. As a whole, this is a good one session. You probably do this one in about 2 hours. It's a simple castle dungeon crawl. What I liked about it was, unlike the Borderlands, this one was a lot smaller and more compact and easier to run. It's a simple treasure hunt. But yeah, and as I was saying here, basically, if you see this copy in the wild, you might want to snag it. But yeah, destroyed immediately. Sticking with the B series, the Lost City. I get another 1 to 3 level module. Bring 6 to 8 henchmen. Timberless one again. It's very simple. Party gets lost in a desert sandstorm. Stumbles upon a pyramid that contains an underground city. Ranked 28th best adventure by Ninja Magazine 04. There's over 100 rooms in this module, and half of them are detailed. The other half, the DM's expected to flesh out. You'll get notes saying what's in the room and stuff like that, but the DM's supposed to actually flesh it out and use their imagination. The boss fight really is a boss fight. There is a boss monster, spoilers, called Zygon, who you get hints at all through the module. And when you finally encounter him, it's pretty weird. The counter's actually well written. For, being an RPG product, there's an entire civilization documented in this module. And there's like 3 factions you have to figure out. A lot of good encounters. And it really feels like a really good, meaty module. The only problem is, though, is when you're running, we call it a session or whatever kind of thing. A session was a series of connected adventures or all in the same universe. So if your party was tracking down a dragon and you want to go to the Lost City, you'd have the module ready to go. You had to find a reason for them to get lost in the desert, to find this pyramid, and come back from the desert from being lost and all that. They have some hints to all that. So while these modules are good, you try to find a reason to get there. We just said basically, hey, you've been hired to go here and all that. And again, the notes do call for 6 to 10 party members because it's some encounters are not really fair. And I'm pretty sure I want to say basically they did collect modules B1 to B9 all in one monster book for AD&D second edition or something like that. They're just that good. I don't know if you've heard of this one, Duncan. It's the Hidden Shrine of Tamashan. Now, what's unique about this one is this was first used as a tournament module. Now, what that means basically is at the Origins and Gen Con, they would have Dungeon & Dragon tournaments. And what it was is you would play a module with pre-generated characters, and depending on what you'd done or how far you got, you would actually get a score. And that was kind of a popular thing to do. This one has the books of illustrations because there's nice things to describe, but you can describe it, but looking at it is even better. It was meant to introduce the players to the world of Greyhawk. It was a universe that I think Gygax created, and you want all the adventures to take place in Greyhawk. It used to be like, how do I describe it? Well, kind of like Game of Thrones, right? The world of Westeros, whatever. Greyhawk was supposed to be this living, breathing world, and it was for a while. Pardon me, but now it's kind of faded to obscurity. This module's got an influence of like Aztec and man culture all through the book. There's lots of traps in this one, though. You were better off using the pre-generated characters because, again, this is a tournament module. So these characters were equipped and geared up to deal with the things in the module. It was kind of like gaming the game a bit, right? For example, one of the pre-generated characters has a sword with plant thorns on it that gains a bonus against certain creatures in this module. Important to have it, all that kind of thing. Mixed reviews. Some people put in their best list, some people in their worst list. It's a lot of traps, a lot of poison, which I'm never really a big fan of. But I had a lot of fun with it when I ran through it. Played both with my own PCs and the pre-generated ones. And again, the pre-generated ones had a lot easier time with it. But it was one of the ones that basically I thought a venture that had like a living, breathing world I could sink my teeth into. It felt like it was in an Aztec dungeon, with main influences. This was a bit controversial. A4, in the Dungeon of the Slave Lords. Again, another open tournament at Gen Con 12 in 1980. Hit number 20 on the best adventure list. So there is a module, of course, A1, 2, 3, 4. When the tournament came out, it was just this module by itself. When it was actually printed, they added A1, 2, 3 to it to give it some backstory and stuff like that. So what I liked about this one is you're actually imprisoned in the dungeon. All you've got basically Slave Lords and Dungeons & Dragons Online, not to extend the original modules though. Well, that's good because I like this, the way it starts out. You're literally basically unequipped, unprepared. You'll wake up with loincloths, a little bit of, loincloths, sand, sticks. Some mysterious benefactor left the magic users a few scrolls to get spells. The clerics can pay for spells, and that's it. You got to start from scratch and make your way through the dungeon and find stuff to gear up. And that's what I thought was really interesting because, for example, spoilers, had a sand floor. You can make clubs with using your loincloths and putting sand in and stuff like that. Like you said, you really had to find your wits to survive this one. The mechanoids were introduced in this module. Later on, these modules started introducing new monsters one at a time. And when you got later on, you got the monster manuals. They all wound up in there. But, it was interesting meeting the odd new monster once in a while. Climax was you fight against the slave lords who are like a bunch of like evil party people, whatever, evil cleric, you magic user. The problem was, like I said, A1, 2, 3, 4, usually these models are all connected. If you started playing A1 at levels, whatever, 1 to 3, 4 to 7, there's a good chance you'd outlevel this module by the time you got here. And that's why it was kind of clunky. But as a standalone open tournament module, it's great. Like I said, I had a lot of fun playing it because I play from scratch. This one I can't leave off the list. Again, remember I talked about Dragonlance being kind of a phenomenon that went on for 20 odd years? Ravenloft's gone on easily for, was 83, 41 years. This is still relevant as is today. Count Strahd von Zorovic, the vampire ruler of Ravenloft. It has to be. I cannot stress again how this was a key pivotal role in Dungeons & Dragons modules. Because instead of being a straight up hack and slash, you basically had a villain, a vampire, who had motivations and stuff like that. Was he truly evil? Was he truly good? It was up to you and the Dungeon Master. It could also, too, had different mechanisms for random placements of the treasure, Strahd, motivation. And I always changed all that. Yeah, of course we got a 5th edition Curse of Strahd. Very unique. Spawned tons of novels. As Duncan said, it's still around. The character of Count Strahd is so iconic in Dungeons & Dragons now, you can't get away from it. So Hickman's got the idea in the 1970s, late 70s. Playtest it every Halloween from 78 to 83 of their friends. What else can I say about this thing here? Dragon called it the second best adventure. I'd say it's pretty good. But I cannot tell you basically how huge this is. WTC forced you to use the 5th edition version. Yeah, I figured. But like I said, though, there's a board game. There's the Ravenloft board game that uses the rules and all that kind of stuff. Again, good adventure. It was something entirely different from the normal hack and slash approach. And like I said, it just I drew a blank where he actually. Oh yeah, he's in Barovia. So basically, that whole realm became its own little kind of universe and legend. And like I said, I've read the novels. Novels, mileage may vary and all that. But again, hugely iconic. And when I played it for the first time, it was the first time I wasn't trying to Like I said, hack and slash everything in sight. Here's a weird one. I bought this on a whim. Dungeonland. Um, if you ever want to adventure through Wonderland, this is the module for you. So what you're supposed to do basically, you're supposed to keep the nature of this module from the players as long as possible. So it plays like a side quest. Let's say they're going to like kill evil group of goblins, and they wind up going down a rabbit hole or something, and all of a sudden they find themselves in Wonderland, and like everything is there, like the white rabbit and all that. Like, it's all there. It says levels only at 12, but let me tell you something. All the characters from the Wonderland books have been reimagined as D&D monsters. Powerful ones like that. For example, the White Rabbit is a 20th level Archmage who's forgotten to himself how to go back to human. It can go from fun to whimsy to lethal in about 3 seconds. Everything in here can kill the party like literally bam, like that. Certain spells are banned. The rule is that you cast certain spells, either don't work or they have work in a really weird way. So players, for example, try to shrink to go to certain areas. Their equipment doesn't shrink either. There was a sequel that followed the events of Through the Looking Glass called Land Beyond the Magic Mirror. The only thing that was kind of humbling about it was it really railroaded you into an A to B to C to D path. You couldn't do open adventuring. But it was very whimsy. And like I said, if you're looking to shake up your adventure or your sessions, this is the way to go. I dungeon mastered it, and I tried to be polite to the players, but they did lose a few members along the way. They thought they could tune up a few of the monsters in it, and like they wanted to go after the Queen of Hearts. I thought, oh, okay, guys. So, but yeah, it was like I said. Sometimes 80s were a weird time. How about this one, Duncan? If you're a D&D player, a classic player like me, everyone knows S1 Tomb of Horrors. AKA Insta-Kill Dungeon, like we called it. Lost a companion, loot the corpse, feel amazing, man. Yes. Oh no, our henchman's dead. Who can carry his stuff? Has he got any gold on him? Boo-hoo. Tomb of Horrors. I cannot tell you. Oh my gosh. I remember how you said that, you know where it was in the modules to start playing them? This one had a reputation about it long before I even saw it. Yeah, it would be hard to introduce an MMO. So basically, I mean, it was an official tournament module for Origins 1. So Gary Guy actually used to have a regular gaming group. And they complained that they got so powerful, they said, hey, we need a challenge because we're just stimulating you giving at us. So the Master of Dungeons said, okay, I'll come up with an adventure. And he came up with a Tomb of Horrors. This thing the original one is a meat grinder. It's designed to actually chew up and spit parties out. There's a tons of puzzles in here. You cannot roll to guess. You got to use your own wits and all that. The dungeon's full of lethal traps. And I mean lethal. We're talking about half of them have no saving throw. So Dungeons & Dragons, if you get poisoned or turned to stone or something, you can roll to avoid death or whatever kind of thing. Gygax says, nope, no saving throw. So a lot of stuff in this module was instant kill. And it is ugly, 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 ugly. Even just figuring out how to get into the tomb can probably kill 2 or 3 of the members of the party. And that's not even getting to the big boss. Like, the big boss is you can actually miss it if you're not even looking because it's so complicated. It's insane. I couldn't believe it. Now, DM needed a poker face on this one because, you didn't want to give many hints to the puzzles that are going away. Now, 5th edition did get updated. And 5th edition did ease up on the lethality of the module. There's a lot more saving throws. The puzzles are not as hard. I talked to some young pups who ran through the 5th edition version, and they made it through mostly intact, but they didn't find the big boss and all that. Like I said, would work better as a tournament module with pre-generated characters, because if you took through your own characters in the 1st edition version, you weren't coming out. Doesn't matter how well equipped you were. I'd like to say I brought the Undertaker for this one. Loved by some, hated by others, but respected by all. But yeah, this one, like I said, I played it. I did make it out. And I was even going second or third in the party. Got two more left here. Cannot mention Queen of the Dim Pits. Again, I DM'd this one too as well. What sticks to me about this one basically was one of the first times I had an actual official module take me to another plane of existence. In Dungeons & Dragons, there's multiple planes of existence. Elemental planes, negative plane, the abyss, 600 layers of bliss. All these different planes you can go to. And of course, and they're all populated with deities and stuff like that. Well, in the 66th layer of the abyss is also known as the Dim Pits, where is it Lilith? Lolth, who is like a spider deity, resides and all this kind of stuff. Well, that's good. Yeah, like this is classic stuff. And this one was part of a larger module. So basically you had G1 to 3 where you fought giants, which is great. 1 to 2 introduced the Drow, became some of the coolest villains ever. And this was basically the climax of the whole thing. And it was the first time they talked about going to other planes and how to, like, it was always there for spells, but this is actually how to get to the other place. And again, to make things even harder, magic works differently here. There was at least 2 or 3 pages explaining what spells worked, what spells didn't work, and what spells kind of had bad effects and all that. Another thing too, basically, was to really put the boost to the party. Magic weapons had a plus usually to them, +1, +2. If you had a +2 sword, usually did +2 to hit and +2 to damage. Since you're so far from the prime material plane where the weapon was made, it was -2 modifier. So your +2 sword became 0, or normal sword. And a lot of things here needed magical weapons to be hit by. Crisscrossing paths, easy to miss the exit. You had armies ambush. You had enemies ambushing you. You had rooms like full of like 66 gnolls. Like it was just insane, basically. On the final path, there's other rooms to other universes you can flesh out. But the big thing basically is once you get to the final showdown with the deity there, it's not exactly a stand-up fight. It's more of a run and gun. And, she doesn't have a lot of hit points, but she's hard to hit. Again, I would argue this one is probably a little easier in the party than Tomb of Horrors. Yes, I know it sounds ridiculous, but true. But again, it was meant for those high-level parties looking for the ultimate, thing to hunt down. Reprinted in 86, known as the Queen of Spiders Super Module. That means it contained G1 and G3 and D1 and D2. And it was pretty good. Like I said, I own this one. I DM this one. Running these modules were hard because, like, for this one, I had to remember what spell didn't do what, stuff like that, and my notes and all that. And it could be frustrating to the players, too, if they weren't looking forward to a challenge. Like, imagine being buffed up magical gear and having it gone, basically. So. And here's my number one. Well, like I said there's no number one. There's number one. S3. Expedition of the Barrier Peaks. Which I spelled peaks wrong, of course. Sorry about that. Should have a contest. If you find spelling errors in this presentation here, you win a prize. This one was fantastic. Because I'm a sci-fi fan. And so what it is basically you're sent to investigate a falling star. You find a steel door. And you wind up on a spaceship. Full of monsters and alien things and robots. And of course, futuristic gear. Again, another tournament module, introduced in 74. Had a several book of illustrations. I think there was like almost 64 pages, somewhere in color. You explore this large saucer ship full of aliens and monsters. You could find like laser weapons, needlers, armor, and all this kind of stuff. There's a flow chart to see if you care to figure out how to use them and all that. Absolutely incredible module, in my opinion. What I liked about it, though, was any weapon you took away needed power cells. So they eventually would run out of power. So you couldn't basically be gunning down red dragons every week if you want to take care of that. Let me see here. Oh yeah, the other thing I talk about this one too is this was meant to launch another RPG called Metamorphosis Alpha. Uh, Players in that RPG are trapped on a generation ship built by some ancestors called the Warden. We don't know. The ship has experienced a cataclysmic event. The players understand technology. The ship is spiraling, crawling mutated creatures. So basically, it was like a sci-fi dungeon crawl RPG. Never got off the ground, unfortunately. But I remember this one vividly. I remember most of the encounters from this one. The frogmouth. The watcher, not the watcher. There's a wood with a rabbit, but he's like a wooden tack stump. The Vegapygmies. There's a friggin' mind flayer in here who's forgot to use some of the tech. That's a heck of an encounter. And it finishes off you taking on a bullet, which is a super tough monster with like AC 0. Stephen Colbert even mentioned that this is one of his favorite modules. And they did update it for 5th edition. But like I said, I remember getting this one. I remember this one so vivid. I remember where I bought it. I bought it at the SNR in Belleville. It's no longer there. I took it home, and there was no adventure module. There was 2 copies of the illustrations. I had to go back, exchange it for one that had the illustrations and the actual adventure module. It's great. Like I said, the design of the tech, implementing it into a medieval world, having people how to figure it out, and stuff like that, was pretty good. And there's a story here too. Like I said, it's not as I would call as coherent as the Lost City before, but still good. Well, that's it. If you got a favorite module, let me know. How much these cost back in the day, and how much are they now? Oh my gosh, Swits. I could buy these probably for about $12 to $14, maybe on the high end. Maybe even like $10 really. Last time I looked, I think this one goes for around $50 or $60 beat up, if you can find it. I know some of the lower modules, like B2, the Keeping the Borderlands. You can probably pick that up for about $25. They're not cheap. I thought I'd love to go back and collect some of these, but the price of the secondary market are insane. The ones I mentioned in here are probably some of the most expensive modules you're going to find, also including the UK modules and stuff like that. And like I said, I've only scratched the surface. There are no real cheap modules. Even the one that came with the basic sets, like X1, yeah. Do they still make new ones? Kind of. So it's kind of interesting. With 5th edition, other people make modules licensed by the publisher. So what... I make sure I get this right here. So what Wizard of the Coast did was they made their 5th edition rules open licensed. The basic rules are open licensed. You can use them, the terms, the monsters, and all that, as long as you would attribute them to some way to Wizard of the Coast. So people could actually publish their own modules and sell them. So there is a very booming industry. You can go on places like Drive-Thru RPG and pick up modules for the modern Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know how they are, but I do know there are a lot of them. There was a kerfuffle, I think a year or so back, when they're going to actually change the license to take away that opening aspect of it. And people protested because it would stop not only people from making their own modules and selling them, but also people making Dungeons and Dragons online content, like for streaming and stuff like that. But yeah, they still make new ones, and the best part is, even back in the first edition days, with the monster manuals and the Dungeon Master's Guide, you can make your own adventure, your own world quite easily. It was awesome. I do like how a lot of them just basically update the modules for 5th edition, or else create spin-outs. But yeah, they do actually. It's not the same though. Like I said, I do miss that retro feeling of going to the store, picking up the module that's sealed in cellophane, look at the cover of the back saying, we'll see how that goes basically. But yeah, if you got some any favorites, let me know. I know Duncan let me know early one of his early favorites, but yeah. But yeah, those are my favorites. Those are the ones I played the most of. I remember most fondly, but like I said, there's so many of them. And that's my look at my favorite classic D&D modules.